Ever pondered how the streets of New York became a hotbed for gangs? It all kicks off in the gritty 1800s, with the notorious Five Points gang ruling the roost. Their stomping ground, Manhattan's Five Points district, a melting pot of cultures, a hub of poverty, and a breeding ground for crime. These gangs weren't born out of thin air. They sprang from a cocktail of socio-economic conditions that made the streets of New York a veritable pressure cooker. The city was brimming with immigrants, all vying for a slice of the American dream. But with poverty knocking at their doors and opportunities scarce, many found solace and survival in the ranks of these early gangs. So the Five Points gang wasn't just a group of misfits causing mayhem. They were a product of their time, a response to the harsh realities of life for the city's underprivileged. From the Five Points gang, New York streets began to witness the rise of organized crime. The Prohibition era, a time of lawlessness, or should we say, a golden age for gangs. Born between 1920 and 33, it was a period when Uncle Sam said no to the juice, the hooch, the liquor. But the people, they didn't take too kindly to that. And who was there to supply the demand? The gangs, baby. This was the era when Italian-American mafia and Jewish mobsters rose to prominence. They saw opportunity in the parched lips of Americans and capitalized on the illegal alcohol trade. Men like Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky, they weren't just gangsters. They were businessmen, entrepreneurs of the underworld, making fortunes from the thirst of the nation. But it wasn't just about the money. The Prohibition era reshaped the face of gang activity. It turned street gangs into organized crime syndicates with hierarchy, rules, and territories. The Prohibition era not only fed the gangs but also transformed them into organized crime syndicates. As the war ended, did peace return to the streets of New York? Not quite. Instead, the post-war period saw the emergence of a new breed of street gangs, marking a dramatic shift in the city's underworld. As the influence of the Italian-American mafia began to wane, African-American and Latino gangs started to rise, reshaping the landscape of New York streets. The Black Spades and the Savage Skulls, among others, began to dominate the boroughs. These gangs weren't just about criminal activities. They were a reflection of the socio-economic conditions of the time, a response to poverty, racial tension, and a lack of opportunities. These gangs offered a sense of belonging, protection, and power to their members, albeit through violent and illegal means. This era marked a turning point in the history of New York's gangs. The Italian-American mafia's reign was over, and the streets were now under the control of these new, vibrant, and ruthless street gangs. The post-war period saw the streets of New York dominated by a new breed of gangs. Fast forward to today, have the gangs disappeared? Far from it. The streets of New York are still home to notorious gangs like the Bloods, Crips, and Latin Kings. These modern gangs, while rooted in history, have evolved, taking on new forms and adopting new traditions. Now, gang culture isn't just about territory or power, it's about identity. It's about the colors you wear, the language you speak, and the music you listen to. Speaking of music, let's not forget the indelible influence of gang culture on hip-hop. From the gritty lyrics that tell tales of street life to the powerful beats that echo the pulse of the city, hip-hop is a sonic reflection of the gang culture. Gang influence on hip-hop is not just a one-way street. The music, in turn, shapes the culture, creating a symbiotic relationship between the two. Today, the influence of gangs extends beyond the streets, shaping our culture and music. So, what's the journey of New York's gangs been like? It's a tale as old as the city itself, evolving from the notorious Five Points gang of the 19th century to the modern street gangs that permeate the boroughs today. These gangs were not born in a vacuum. They rose from the city's socio-economic conditions, shaped by historical events. From the influx of immigrants in the 1800s that birthed the Five Points, to the Prohibition era, which gave rise to organized crime families. The post-war period saw the rise of street gangs, as marginalized communities sought a sense of belonging and protection. Modern gangs, on the other hand, are often fueled by territorial disputes and the drug trade, a dark mirror reflecting the city's ongoing struggles with poverty and systemic inequality. From the back alleys of the Five Points to the gritty streets of the Bronx, the history of gangs in New York is a testament to the city's tumultuous past.